I was controversy itself. I railed against morality, weakness, and famous figures like Wagner and Kant, but the real controversy began after my mind collapsed. My sister Elizabeth twisted my work. She aligned it with German nationalism, even with anti-Semitism, things I despised. She made me into something I was not. It was a betrayal I could not even protest, trapped as I was in madness.
Welcome to the Undead Sages podcast, where we travel back in time to talk to long-dead wise men and women. Of special interest is the question how sensitive people like you and me can live rich and meaningful lives in our uncertain times. My name is Merijn de Haen, and today we'll be talking to Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher from the 19th century. Friedrich Nietzsche was renowned for his radical ideas on morality, religion, and individualism. He famously declared, "God is dead," critiquing traditional values and advocating for the creation of personal meaning. His influential works include Thus Spoke Zarathustra and Beyond Good and Evil. Despite struggling with health issues, Nietzsche's thoughts on the will to power and the Übermensch continue to shape modern philosophy. Please welcome to the podcast, Friedrich Nietzsche.
Thank you, Merijn. I'm looking forward to talking about life with you.
So am I. Could you tell us about your life?
Well, it was a short one, but intense. I was born in 1844 in Röcken, a small village in Prussia. My father was a Lutheran pastor, and his early death left a mark on me. I grew up in a household of women, my mother, my sister, my aunts, and my grandmother. They shaped my early years, though in time I would break from many of their beliefs. As a child, I was deeply serious, obsessed with music and literature. I excelled in school, which led me to study philology, ancient texts, languages, the roots of thought. By the time I was 24, I had become a professor at the University of Basel, the youngest ever at the time. But my health was always fragile. Migraines, stomach pains, and worsening eyesight haunted me. By my mid-30s, I had to resign and live as a wanderer. Switzerland, Italy, France, writing, always writing. My works, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, The Gay Science, were largely ignored in my lifetime. People found me strange, too radical, but I knew I was saying something important. My ideas about morality, about truth, about the death of God were meant to shake the world awake. And then, at the age of 44, my mind collapsed. In 1889, in Turin, I saw a horse being beaten in the street. Something inside me broke. Madness took me. The last years of my life were spent in silence under my sister's control as my mind slipped away. But I had already left my thoughts behind, waiting for those who would understand.
Can you tell us an amusing, exciting, or educative anecdote from your life?
Let me tell you about the time Richard Wagner and I had one of our last meetings. I once admired him deeply. He was a genius, a creator of myths. But over time, I saw his weaknesses, his nationalism, his obsession with Christianity. One evening, when I visited him at his home, he played me something new, his Parsifal, his great Christian opera. He watched me expectantly, hoping I would be moved. Instead, I felt disgusted. This man who once wanted to create music for the future had fallen back into religious sentimentality. I left in silence. That was the beginning of the end for our friendship. Later, I wrote The Case of Wagner, attacking him openly. It was painful, yes, but necessary. A thinker must not be loyal to persons, only to truth.
Tell us more about the place you grew up.
Röcken was small, quiet, and deeply religious. My father was the village pastor, and everything revolved around faith. The church bells marked the rhythm of life. My early memories are of hymn singing, family prayers, and the certainty that the world was guided by a divine order. But that world broke for me when my father died when I was only 5. He had been a strong, noble figure, and suddenly he was gone. I was meant to follow in my father's footsteps, to serve God. But already doubts were growing in me. Even as a boy, I felt the weight of tradition, of duty, pressing down. I wanted something more.
Did you always live there? Or did you move to other places at some point in your life?
No, I left as soon as I could. My mind needed space to breathe. First, I studied in Forta, an elite school where I immersed myself in the ancient Greeks. Then Leipzig, where I encountered Schopenhauer's philosophy. It was like a lightning bolt to my soul. I also met Wagner there. Those years changed me. Then came Basel, where I taught for a decade, but my health forced me to abandon that life. After that, I wandered Sils Maria in Switzerland, where I wrote some of my greatest works. The Italian coast, the mountains. I sought solitude. Cities overwhelmed me. People tired me. My body was weak, but my mind was always searching, questioning, demanding more.
Take us on a tour of the places that mattered most to you.
Sils Maria, high in the Alps, there I found clarity. The mountain air, the stillness, the lake reflecting the sky. It was there that the thought of the eternal recurrence first came to me. A dizzying idea. What if time repeats endlessly? What if we must live our lives over and over exactly as they are? It was terrifying but also exhilarating. Then Turin, where my mind burned brightest before it shattered. I walked its streets like a prophet, feeling the intensity of existence, but it was also where I collapsed, where madness took me. And of course, Röcken, where it all began, and where I would be buried, under the shadow of the church I had long since abandoned.
Tell us about the intellectual, philosophical, and religious currents of your place and time.
Europe in my time was drowning in contradictions. Science was rising. Darwin had shattered the old religious view of the world, but Christianity still clung to power. People were trying to hold on to old beliefs while embracing modern progress. It was pathetic. Hypocrisy everywhere. German philosophy was in the shadow of Kant, Hegel, and then Schopenhauer, but they were still too moralistic, too wrapped up in old illusions. Even Schopenhauer, whom I admired, was too pessimistic, too resigned. I wanted something new, something beyond mere denial. And politics? Bismarck was forging a new Germany, but I had no interest in nationalism. The herd, the masses, disgusted me. I wanted to speak to the rare ones, the individuals, the ones who could break free.
Tell us about philosophers or sages that had an influence on you, or to whom you had a relationship of some sort.
The Greeks shaped me. Heraclitus, with his idea that everything is in flux, Thucydides, with his hard, unsentimental view of history, and most of all, the pre-Socratics, before Plato poisoned philosophy with morality. Schopenhauer was my first master. His book, The World as Will and Representation, struck me like a storm. He saw life as suffering, driven by blind will. But in time I rejected his pessimism. I wanted to affirm life, not deny it. Then Wagner, my once beloved friend. He was a titan, a myth maker, but in the end he disappointed me, retreating into Christianity. And Goethe, yes, I admired him. He was a yes-sayer, a man who embraced life in all its contradictions. If Germany had more Goethe and fewer Wagners, perhaps I would not have felt so alone.
Did you get involved in any controversies?
Oh, I was controversy itself. My ideas were too sharp, too unsettling. People either ignored me or recoiled in horror. The first real break came with Wagner. I had once praised him in The Birth of Tragedy, calling his music the rebirth of Greek tragedy. But later I saw through him, his nationalism, his return to Christianity, his obsession with German superiority. I attacked him mercilessly in The Case of Wagner. Wagnerians hated me for it, but I did not care. Truth first, always. Then came my war against morality. My book, On the Genealogy of Morality, dissected Christian values, showing how they were born not from strength, but from resentment. People called me dangerous, immoral, even insane. How ironic, because it was the world that had gone mad, clinging to its old gods while pretending to be enlightened. But the real controversy began after my mind collapsed. My sister Elizabeth twisted my work. She aligned it with German nationalism, even with anti-Semitism, things I despised. She made me into something I was not. It was a betrayal I could not even protest, trapped as I was in madness.
How did your teachings stand out from what was already taught in your lifetime?
I stood against everything. The philosophers of my time, Kant, Hegel, even Schopenhauer, were trapped in old systems, trying to explain life in terms of logic, morality, or pessimism. I rejected it all. Religion? Dead. Science? It tells us how things work, but not why we should live. Politics? Just another herd mentality game. I offered something different, a philosophy of will, of strength, of the individual rising beyond the crowd. People wanted comfort. I gave them a challenge. That is why so few understood me. They wanted easy answers. I demanded they create their own.
Can you tell us about your teachings?
I teach one thing above all. Life must be affirmed, not escaped, not denied. Too many philosophers, too many religions tell you life is a burden, a mistake. I say, no, say yes to it. Even its suffering, its hardships, they are necessary. They shape you, they make you strong. Another lesson. Morality is not what you think it is. The so-called good is often just weakness disguised as virtue. Christianity, with its obsession with humility and meekness, is a morality for the defeated. I call for a new morality, one based on power, on growth, on becoming more than you are. Not domination over others, but domination over yourself. And then there is the eternal recurrence. Imagine you must live this life again, every moment, forever. Would you curse it, or would you embrace it? That is the test. If you can say yes, yes to everything, then you are truly alive.
A full-throated yes to human experience, no matter how it is parsed by the senses or the emotions. That sounds almost like a mystical practice. Have we come full circle from your initial embrace of mysticism, via your rejection of it, to this encapsulation of the living yes?
Ah, now you are beginning to grasp it. You see, many mistake my work as mere negation, a war on morality, on religion, on tradition. And yes, I do destroy, I take the hammer to every idol, every false certainty, but destruction is not my goal. It is only the clearing of the rubble. What I seek is affirmation, a new way of being, a full-throated yes to life, without crutches, without illusions. And you are right to sense something almost mystical in this. But it is a mysticism without gods, without metaphysics, without escape. It is not the mysticism of retreat, of dissolving into some higher reality, but of plunging deeper into this reality, this world, this body, this moment. It is the intoxication of existence as it is, with all its suffering, all its contradictions, all its intensity. Does this bring us full circle? In a way, yes. My early love of the Dionysian, of ecstatic rapture, of the wisdom beyond rationality, never left me. What changed was my understanding of it. In my book The Birth of Tragedy, I saw Dionysus through Wagnerian eyes, through the veil of Schopenhauer's pessimism. I thought art could save us, could redeem existence. Later, I saw this as a weakness, a flight into aesthetic comfort. But in the end I returned to Dionysus, not as a god of escape, but as a god of affirmation. Thus my Dionysus is not the old mystical longing to dissolve the self. It is the fire that creates the self. What happens if a person fully embraces this? What happens if a society dares to do so? The individual who overcomes, the one who casts off inherited values, who affirms life without fear, becomes a creator. Not a passive receiver of truths, but a maker of meaning. This is the Übermensch, not a ruler of others, but a ruler of himself, an artist of existence. A society of such individuals, if such a thing were possible, would be unlike anything we have seen. No longer ruled by slave morality, no longer shackled by guilt and resentment, no longer seeking comfort in false certainties. Such a world would be driven not by equality, which is merely the morality of the weak, but by excellence. By striving, by creation. A culture not of safety, but of danger, exploration, intensity. Would this society be peaceful? No, but neither would it be enslaved by pettiness, by smallness, by the mediocrity of the last man. It would be a world of great struggles, great contradictions, great achievements. A world where life is not merely survived, but exulted in. But I will not give you blueprints. That is for you to imagine, to create. If I have roused you from your doctrinal slumber, then do not ask me what comes next. Decide for yourself.
I gather that for you, creation is the high watermark of humanity, more so than the full-throated yes to all experience. For you, then, is mysticism a byproduct, rather than a goal of the life of the Übermensch, with creation its ultimate goal?
Yes, you understand me well. Creation is the pinnacle, the ultimate expression of the liberated individual. The full-throated yes to all experience is the foundation, the necessary stance, the unflinching embrace of reality without illusions. But what then? If one merely accepts, merely affirms without creating, one remains incomplete. To create, to bring forth something new, something that did not exist before, that is the true height of human power. Mysticism, then, is not the goal but a byproduct, a symptom of the intensity of living at this level. The Übermensch is not a mystic in the passive sense, not someone who dissolves into experience, who loses themselves in some formless unity. No, the Übermensch is a creator, and in that creation there may be moments of mystical ecstasy, of transcendence, not of escaping the world, but of fully inhabiting it. Imagine the highest moments of artistic or intellectual creation, that feverish clarity, that feeling of something greater flowing through you. That is the Dionysian state, but now fused with will, with direction, with power. Not a surrender to some external divine force, but the self overflowing with its own abundance. Thus, the true goal is not mysticism, not mere experience, but creation. The act of shaping, of forming, of imposing meaning onto chaos. Whether in art, in philosophy, in life itself, the Übermensch does not just experience reality, he reshapes it.
Just to push back a little. Sometimes people create because they want to expose themselves or to please others, while mystics often care little about the outside world, preferring to experience reality as it is. They don't much care how they are perceived by anyone. In terms of authenticity, I'd rate the mystic higher than the creator. What would you say?
A sharp challenge. Good. Let's sharpen our blades against each other. Yes, many create for vanity, for recognition, for applause. But that is not creation in my sense. That is mere performance, a spectacle for the herd. The true creator does not create for others. He creates because he must, because something within him overflows. He does not seek approval, he imposes. He does not ask if the world will accept him, he reshapes the world in his image. That is not vanity, that is power. And yes, the mystic seeks authenticity to experience reality as it is. But is that enough? Is it enough to simply witness, to dissolve, to merge? I say no, because life is not just something to be experienced, it is something to be willed. The mystic accepts the world. The creator recreates it. The mystic may reach a higher plane of experience, but the creator makes the world itself a higher plane. Ask yourself this: if the mystic is truly beyond the need for recognition, if he is truly content in his experience, why does he not shape the world with his insight? If he has seen something profound, why does he not do something with it? I suspect the answer because he lacks the will to power. He is content, yes, but contentment is not enough. The highest individual is not the one who merely experiences, but the one who acts, who creates, who becomes a force. The mystic might glimpse a truth, but the creator forces truth into being. That is the difference. That is the higher path.
But when you say that the will is a higher expression of authenticity than simple experience or witnessing, are you not also saying that we can overcome our biological drives simply by following them? By following the drive to survive, to thrive, to procreate, to dominate, do we somehow become more than human?
You touch the paradox at the heart of my thought. You see, the will to power is both our nature and our transcendence of it. It is what drives us as living beings, but also what allows us to go beyond mere biological necessity. Let me explain. Yes, we are animals. Yes, we have instincts to survive, to procreate, to dominate. But what makes us human, what makes us great, is that we do not merely follow these drives like automatons. We sublimate them, shape them, turn them into something more. The will to power is not just survival, it is the drive to become more than we are, to transform brute existence into something higher. Consider art, consider philosophy. These are not necessary for survival. They are not dictated by simple biological drives, and yet they are among the highest expressions of the will to power. Why? Because they take raw instinct and reshape it into something beyond itself. The same energy that drives the animal to dominate its rivals drives the creator to forge new values, new meanings, new worlds. So no, I do not say that to follow the will is merely to follow biology. I say that the highest expression of will is to go beyond the biological imperative, to take it in one's hands and bend it, mold it, turn it into something uniquely one's own. The one who simply follows instinct is not yet free. The one who masters instinct, who uses it as raw material for something higher, that is the one who overcomes, that is the one who creates himself. And that, my friend, is where the mystic fails. He dissolves into experience. He witnesses, but he does not act. He may see the abyss, but he does not dance on its edge. The creator, the Übermensch, does not merely see, he makes, he wills, he becomes. That is the difference.
How can your teachings be relevant for sensitive individuals who worry about the uncertainties of life?
Ah, the sensitive ones. I know them well. I too was one. The world weighs heavily on them. They see too much, feel too deeply. But sensitivity is not weakness. It is a gift. If you make it serve you instead of enslave you. Do not seek shelter in false comforts, religion, ideology, even philosophy. If they are crutches, throw them away. Instead, embrace the uncertainty and say, yes, life is difficult. Yes, nothing is guaranteed. And because of that, I will make my own meaning. That is the way forward. And remember this, hardships are not your enemy. They are your fuel. If life were easy, what would you become? Nothing. It is struggle that makes you. Use it.
How do you view compassion?
Ah, compassion. A word that carries both danger and power. A word that has been twisted, tamed, turned into a virtue that weakens rather than strengthens. I do not reject compassion outright. No, I reject the way it is used. I reject the way it has been made into a tool of guilt, of self-sacrifice, of moral cowardice. The way it is turned into a command. You must feel for others. You must put them before yourself. You must suffer because they suffer. No, that is slave morality, the morality of those who wish to drag everyone down to the same level, to punish strength, to keep life small. But is there a form of compassion that I respect? Yes, compassion that does not come from guilt, from weakness, from a fear of standing apart, but from strength, from overflow, from abundance. When one is strong enough, joyful enough, full of life enough, then one can afford to give. Then one does not pity from a place of sorrow, but affirms from a place of power. This is Dionysian compassion, a compassion that does not weaken, but elevates. I will ask you this. When you feel compassion, does it make you smaller or greater? Does it drain you, or does it fill you with even more energy, clarity? Fire. If it makes you less, then it is false compassion. Compassion infected by guilt, by moral obligation, by hidden resentment. But if it makes you more, if it expands you, then it is something else entirely. Then it is not self-sacrifice, but self-expression. That is the only compassion I recognize, the compassion of the strong, the compassion that gives without diminishing itself. Not pity, not weakness, but a force of life overflowing.
Tell us about your death.
I was already dead long before my body gave out. In 1889 in Turin my mind broke. They say I embraced a horse in the street, weeping for its suffering. Perhaps I had seen too much, felt too much, or perhaps the weight of my own thoughts crushed me. After that I was no longer myself. My sister took control, parading my name around while I sat silent, empty. For 11 years I lingered, a shadow of what I had been. In 1900, in Weimar, my body finally gave up. A stroke, they say. But I had died long before that. Yet in another sense, I did not die at all. My books were waiting. My words had already set fire to the future.
What else do you think I should know?
Know this. I was not a nihilist. People mistake me for one. They think, he said, God is dead, so he must believe in nothing. No, I did not destroy old values so that nothing would remain. I destroyed them so new values could rise. The death of God is not an end. It is a beginning, but only if you have the strength to create.
Do you have any final words for our listeners?
You are more than you think you are. You are not just a product of your time, your family, your society. You are something greater, something unfinished. You can become more, but it will not be easy. You must break free from the chains of comfort, of morality, of certainty. You must face the abyss and laugh. And then, from that darkness, you must create. So I ask you, are you ready?
Thank you, Friedrich Nietzsche, for this fascinating discussion. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Undead Sages podcast. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your friends, rate the episode, leave a comment, and subscribe to the podcast.